how would you feel if the second you left your house, a network of highly advanced facial recognition system tracking cameras were tracking your every single move until you returned back home that day? Well, assuming you obviously closed your windows, because they can probably see through that as well. Well, that's exactly what happens to Palestinians living on their own homeland. The technology used here was created by Israel, and it's called Blue Wolf. But it does have one weak point. Not every single Palestinian comes preloaded in their amazing database, so the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, was given incentives and rewards for whichever soldier group could upload the most photos of Palestinian civilians so that they can build their database. Now, upon taking a photo of a civilian, they're presented with a bunch of information about them: their past photos, family histories, education, and security rating for each person. They've also created a phone app called White Wolf. This was made for Jewish settlers on the West Bank so that they can scan photos of Palestinians' ID cards and find out the information about them. Some former soldiers even called this the Facebook for Palestinians. NSO Group is an Israeli tech firm. They created some of the most powerful spyware technology in the world right now. It's called Pegasus, and there's almost nothing you can do to fully protect yourself from it. This spyware can access personal data of any cell phone, that's encrypted messages, photos, locations, and even turn on your phone's camera and microphone, all while being 100% undetected. Now, Apple even recognized how big of a deal this was that they made a feature called Lockdown. Now, this limits your phone's functionality so that a lot of features that you normally use are now broken purposely. Lockdown disables message previews, it disables web browsing features, and it limits wired connections to computers when the device is fully locked. Now, this means that not even Apple knows how to fully and perfectly defend their phones from this type of exploit. It's just way too powerful. So since nobody's really reverse engineered this attack, Apple kind of just said, like, look, we'll just try to cover you as much as we can, but we're not really sure this can fully work either. An article by The Guardian shows that Pegasus was already being used by Israel to spy on 6 leading Palestinian civil society organizations, and the Palestinian Authority claimed that Pegasus was already found on the phones of 3 senior Palestinian diplomats. Matter of fact, after making this video, it's probably a good idea that I turn on lockdown. In 2014, 43 veterans of the Israeli military's top secret intelligence gathering unit signed a public letter claiming they would no longer work on anything regarding occupied territories of Palestine due to the harm done by Israel's all-encompassing spying. In the testimony and in interviews, the Unit 8200 veterans described exploitative activities focused on innocents whom Israel hoped to enlist as collaborators. They said information about medical conditions, the sexual orientation, were among tidbits collected. They said that Palestinians lacked legal protections from harassment, extortion, and injury. Palestinian sex talks were always a hot item to pass from one person in the unit to another for a good laugh. If you've ever watched Attack on Titan, the West Bank wall should look really familiar. This is where the term open air prison comes from. The wall cuts in and deep into Palestinian territory, even beyond where the internationally recognized boundary is formed. Palestinians living on land that is being occupied are required to have an Israeli-issued ID card on their own land. Now, depending on where you live, the color of your card is different. West Bank and Gaza are green, which means they are restricted and need special permission to either enter Israel or East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem ID cards are blue, which allows more freedom of movement to travel throughout Israel and Palestinian territories. Now, I want you to reflect on this. Right now, as long as you're an adult and you have the money for it, you can book a flight to pretty much wherever you want in the world without much permission needed, right? Well, if you're a Palestinian, it's not that easy at all. You'd first need strict permission from Israel, the occupiers, to leave your own land, and the only other option you have is to leave from Jordan and then fly from Jordan somewhere else. But that's only if Israel lets you cross the border to Jordan, and they could easily reject you at any time for any reason. Now, this actually happened to a friend of mine. He packed his bags, booked his flights, booked his ticket, and then when he got to the border, they said, no, turn back around and go home. And he lost his money for the flight. Now, as a Palestinian citizen, you probably shouldn't be reacting with any pro-Palestine content online because they can see it as a possible threat. A report shows that over 390 Palestinians were being arrested for posts online. Now, better yet, in a BBC article where they were even hesitant to use the word Palestinian and instead they used the word Israeli Arab, as if being Palestinian is just like some preferred pronoun, says this about a girl detained for posting on social media. She was held in police custody and allegedly had disruptive behavior because her posts could incite violence among her followers. Well, What did she post, you might be thinking? A picture of a Palestinian flag, captioned, "There is no victor but God." Inside, what the? And now, if you were a Palestinian citizen, you would not be allowed to have a PayPal account or any online payment system even similar to it. The Palestinian pound that's made for your land actually is pretty much never even used, so you're somewhat forced to use the Israeli currency instead. And if someone in Palestine wants to purchase something online or send money or receive money, they would have to actually take more complicated routes like cryptocurrency or other really weird, strange ways to just send some money to a friend. The legal system is entirely different for a Palestinian indigenous to their own land and settlers occupying it. Palestinians are governed by military law, whereas settlers are governed by Israeli civil and criminal law and then tried in courts. Palestinians can be held for up to 8 days before seeing a military judge, whereas settlers must be brought before a judge within 24 hours. Palestinians can be jailed for participating in a gathering more than 10 people without a permit, whereas settlers can demonstrate up to 50 people and only limited by if it's an outdoor public speech. So indoors are totally fine as much as you want. Palestinians can face nighttime arrests and interrogations without a guardian and remain in detention, whereas settlers are protected against nighttime arrest and have the right to a parent present during interrogations. Palestinians face prohibitions on building and repairing buildings, whereas settlers receive government incentives for infrastructure. And the list just goes on. Healthcare has the same exact type of issue where medicine being provided is dependent on whatever is being sourced through Israel. And meanwhile, the settlers there have some of the most robust healthcare systems in place with a national health insurance system covering all residents. And before this video ends, please make a short supplication to God asking for everybody who was oppressed to get granted their freedom. Thank you all for watching this video. Stay dreaming, stay lucid. I'm out. Peace.